coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So,
Thank you.
Four of us.
I wanted to start by saying, whenever anybody asks me, or whenever I ask anybody if they watched House of Ho, I always tell them, if they say no, I always say, everyone needs to keep an open mind, because this is our story, whether you grew up in Houston or not. Vietnamese, this is our story, and there's a lot of gems that come out of the episodes, and I encourage everybody. And I'm not a reality show watcher. A lot of people are not. But I think there's a lot of conversion now. So congratulations. And I really am thankful and grateful that this exists in our media space today.
Well, I'm grateful that you have an open mind about it, because I think some people, when they see the advertising, they're thrown off by the whole Crazy Rich Asians kind of platform, and they're like, oh, I don't want to see more of that. But I think once they take a chance on us and watch the show, they do learn that that's not what we're all about.
Yeah, I completely agree. I cried probably twice, and I'm not gonna give away when, but literally cried. It touches, especially there's two scenes in there that, especially the New Year's one, and there's one with your father that really touched me on a very deep level. So I want to start this episode to ask you specifically what being Vietnamese, growing up in Houston, is like for all of you.
Well, for me, I appreciate that Houston has such a large Vietnamese-American population. I feel like even though we grew up and our school was mostly Caucasian, I feel like we still felt rooted in our culture, because the church that we went to was Vietnamese, and my parents had such a large circle of Vietnamese friends. So I felt like it was a good way to grow up in both environments, where we grew up with our parents and our traditional values and had that upbringing. We were surrounded by that at home. But when we went to school, we grew up with more American values, and we embraced that as well.
Right. And Lesley, you didn't grow up in Houston, right? You grew up in Dallas.
I grew up in Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma. My apologies. So what does being Vietnamese mean to you today?
So being Vietnamese today is just, it's different. I was back in Oklahoma this past weekend, and it's my father-in-law had actually said, this is not exciting. He's like, I'm not excited when I'm here. And I was like, yeah, it's not exciting. There's not a big Vietnamese population. We have, one Asian grocery store in the South Side, but my parents are comfortable and they're happy, but I feel like being in that environment, not having many Asians around, really made me question who I was and question my background and question where my parents came from, even more so because we didn't have the traditions and we didn't have, a big community celebrations like I do see here in Houston.
Houston's, very culturally diverse. It's a large city on the map. It's a large city with its statistics and demographics, but it's actually a very, small, close-knit community that supports each other. And we were lucky to have this project. And thank you for having all four of us together today.
You're very welcome. Reagan?
Being Vietnamese, yeah, Houston's a good city. We had a good mix of Vietnamese culture from my parents and church, like Judy said. But I think for the most part, we're born and raised in America. Like, I think we identify a lot more with Western culture. We respect the Vietnamese culture because that's where we come from, and we want to honor our parents and honor where we came from. But we're pretty Western for the most part, I like to think.
So from that, I'd like to ask, when you are all talking to your parents, that articulation, the messaging inside of your mind, whenever you're sitting down to communicate, how much of the feeling of them understanding you all do you really get? Do you think that they understand you and vice versa on a real communicative level because of the language barrier?
I think, my parents are, a little more westernized than most Vietnamese that came over at, around the same time or the same generation. And most of all, I think, they've always been open-minded to adapting to change. I think that's helped them be successful professionally, but also with our family.
But do you think they understand you, and do you really understand them?
Yes, they do. They, they've always been very open-minded, although, a little bit of the old Eastern mentality gets to them, but at least they give it a chance to hear us out. And, fortunately on this project, they, kind of agreed to help all of us out in sharing our story.
Right. And Lesley, how do you feel?
I definitely don't feel like my parents understood me. Even growing up, I definitely feel like there's a language barrier. But Wash's parents are more Americanized than my parents are. They understood, that we have to adapt being born and raised in America versus, we didn't grow up in Vietnam. So the traditions are different. Just the lifestyle is different. For me, it was a struggle just even asking to go to prom or homecoming. I was talking to Judy about this last night. Like my mom, they didn't have that in Vietnam, But here, our high school was surrounded by, homecoming, and it was centralized around social and something that my parents didn't understand. So I struggled with that my entire life because they didn't have any other Vietnamese friends really that let their kids go to homecoming or prom or things that, is so natural in, somebody that was raised in America. And I still speak Vietnamese to my parents. There's a huge language barrier. They don't speak English that well or understand it that well. I was talking to my dad and he had said, he'd use the word intimate. He's learning English and he said, me and my cousins are intimate. And I said, oh no, Dad, that's not the right use of it. And he's like, oh, why? Intimate, I looked it up. It means you're close. I'm close to my cousin. I said, no. Like in America, intimate here means like, you're close to your wife, you're intimate with your wife, you're intimate, that's more of like it's hard to explain to him, like kind of like sexual, but not, yeah, you're close, but that's not the way you use it. You're not intimate with your cousin.
Right.
So even now it's still like a language barrier. I'm trying to explain to them.
Yeah. And that's like 1% of our lives with these people, with these older folks, right? There's meaning is lost in the nuance.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. But yeah, the nuance is key. But I was just laughing about what her father said. But I don't know. Maybe in Oklahoma they get intimate with their cousins.
It's not Arkansas, right?
Somehow I knew one of you were going to go there. I was expecting it for Washington.
Yeah, my parents understand us. They're pretty laid back. My dad is a very smart guy, but he doesn't express it a lot, his emotions. So even if he understands us, sometimes he just ignores it. But I know he's the type, he's always watching and he always knows what's going on. Yeah. So, but the communication, it can be tough, but he understands English. But, it's tough. It's tough not because of the language barrier. It's tough just because he is the way he is.
Right. Judy?
Yeah.
I agree with my brothers said. I feel like they know us and they know where our heart is and what our intentions are. Do they accept it? Probably not all the time. But at the same time, I feel like my parents are open, especially after doing this show and just letting everything out there. If anything, with age and everything that we've gone through together as a family, they've come around a lot.
When I think about two people who are intimate, who are in love, the communication that needs to happen between two people is hard enough, right? And we're like speaking perfect English with each other. And that ability to communicate and really listen to what the other person's saying, that's a big challenge in itself.
Right.
And so when I said that I cried twice, what I meant by that is the words weren't spoken in this particular scene, but the experience of being felt by your parents is what I felt. And I think that's sort of like what they have to sort of give is the experience of just being there for us, but not being able to articulate sometimes in words. Watching that is very emotional. And I hope that viewers or potential viewers keep an open mind because of that sort of experience that I felt. If you were able to say things that, with your children, are you all able to be open to, and I'm speaking to the parents here, are you able to be open to your children more freely than your parents were?
Oh, for sure. I think that obviously there's not a language barrier with our children. And we know what it was like growing up with our parents who probably were less expressive than we had hoped for, less touchy-feely, less talking about emotions and tell me how you feel. So I try to do the opposite of that with my kids and really let them feel what they feel and try to, navigate that with them, as opposed to just, either telling them to shut it down or stop crying or, and I just want them to feel open and free with me to share whatever it is that they want to share, even if they think it's going to make me unhappy, so that later on down the road, when they're older and they're dealing with things that are a lot more serious, that I can be there and be a real source of support, as opposed to me, where now when I go through things, in a lot of ways, I don't want to burden my parents with that, because I know they're going to have a negative reaction, or they're going to, be very unhappy about it or give me a guilt trip. So if anything, I try not to share with them. And I hope that it's not the same way with my kids when they're older.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Judy. With our kids, I really push to show my emotions. If I did something wrong, then I apologize for it, whereas my mom never does, So something with that, or just telling my kids I love them. Like growing up, my dad never said I love you until I was like 10. And that's because I watched so much Full House. That's what I grew up with. And every other scene was them hugging, let's talk it through. Let's hug. I love you. And so I had said something to my dad when I was 10 that said, I said, oh, Dad, I know you love me, even though you don't say you love me. And ever since then, even to now, he'll tell me every time he walks in a room, I love you. Every time he leaves the room, I love you. Now he does, because he explained it to me. He said, growing up, my dad never said I love you. My mom never said I love you. That was how it was when he was raised in the Vietnamese culture. You just don't show your emotions like that. So with my kids now, I make sure that we talk through our emotions, that we tell them we love them and they say it back. And, something that's more, I don't know if it's more westernized now, but something that I didn't have growing up that my parents didn't understand.
Right. Washington, you care to explain that reaction you had with Lesley?
I wish you would. I love her mom. Her mom's great, but a little more affection from Lesley to me would be nice.
The intimate.
Yeah, the I love you.
That wasn't the question, but okay.
I kind of want to know, though, are we using this might be a very ignorant question, but the fact that we are able to say I love you and express all these wonderful things, are we making our kids, because I have children as well, are we making them softer? Because the way we grew up with these parents who are not using words to express, we were kind of having to be on edge and watch things and be more observing. And kind of it had to dial us into just more nuanced sort of communication. I think about that a lot. What do you all think about that?
Then I think there's the other extreme, where you hear about kids that don't get affection and they're like serial killers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Reagan?
I think it just depends on the individual. Everybody takes it a little bit differently. I mean, yeah, in some ways it puts you on edge, but is being on edge a good thing? I don't know if that's a good thing. But it can make you more, I guess, observant and more intuitive in a way. But that's for me. But I think everyone handles it differently. I don't think in general, I don't think it's a good way to raise kids. But that's just maybe because I was raised in it. But I don't know. I'm not a psychologist.
Yeah. I've spoken to a lot of friends that are kind of our age and our generation, with fathers that were ex-military, high-ranking officials coming out of Vietnam. Most of those guys had a lot of PTSD when they came to the US, and they weren't really able to really fully operate again at their full selves. My father and a few of my uncles were in that category. You knew they were smart guys, but they just didn't get it together. You all, on the other hand, totally different. I think you have a wonderful father that really hustled and really put the time into focus on the finances and everything. Sort of rest in your psyche, in your mind. Do you have to, live up to that? Or how, if you were to do a deep dive, does that weight of your father and your mother's success weigh down on you all?
I think it makes you have very high expectations of yourself, because you see what our parents were able to achieve considering where they came from. And, we've had every advantage. So the expectations are very, very high. And, my dad is not afraid of reminding us of all that all the time. At the same time, I try to not to like let it weigh on me too much. And at the same time, I just use it as a way to like, something to look up to, something to aspire to at the same time. As my dad is all about ambition and, being successful and enjoying all the material wealth that he's achieved. But his number one, like the most important priority in his life is his family and how he treats his children and his wife. So to me, when I think of my parents, that's what I aspire to the most.
That's a great answer. And Judy, it reflects in the show. And I think that is the thing that I want people to not gloss over, just the sort of like the media campaign that, it's flashy. That's really the meat of why this is important. This is why I want to sit and talk to the four of you, because we don't get to hear that while we're watching the show. You have to kind of like watch it and experience it. And then you pick up on that sort of that patriarchal kind of feeling that your father is giving.
It can put add a little bit extra pressure, that's for sure. My daddy expects a lot, so as any parent does. Seeing him be successful, of course, adds a little bit of extra pressure. And he's a tough man. He's a military man. He's a drill sergeant. So, a lot of times it's his way or the highway. So if you don't listen to him, you better be right. And sometimes, and if you are right, he never gives you credit. He just ignores it. So it's tough dealing with him sometimes. But it's all love. Yeah.
But Lesley, you're not from inside the family. You're married in. How do you feel? Do you feel the pressure, or do you feel like what you've done in your life is sort of like, I've already done, I'm all right. I'm doing good, and it doesn't affect you? Or just not even pressure, but just sort of like his example in life. Like, does it weigh down in your kind of your mental movements and in terms of your career and stuff?
I don't think as far as my career, I think I feel the pressure as in he always constantly reminds me that his wife, made him the way he is. And without her, he wouldn't have had it. Without her support, she had to do this. She had to sacrifice this. So I feel like the pressure on me is more like, I feel like I have to be the same in terms of Washington. For him to aspire to be like his dad, I have to also conform my ways like his mother did. Does that make any sense? And like, as far as like the kids,
yes.
So as far as the career-wise, choice-wise, he doesn't put the pressure on me like he does Judy, Wash, and Reagan. But the support-wise, Washington can't be the man that he knows he can be without me doing what he thinks like that his wife did for him.
Right. Do you agree with that?
I mean, it's different because, they had just came to America. So she had to get up at 5 and work and sacrifice that and host, For me, I'm a working mother. I have a career of my own. I agree to some extent, and I don't to others. There's some characteristics, to support, but things like, if there's big businessmen in town and I have to serve them plates or get bottles of water for them, I'll do it, but it's not my natural instinct to come,
She will not do it.
I'll do it.
I've never seen you do it.
But I don't naturally, I naturally am a part of the conversation. I don't sit on the sideline and I don't sit there and hold a tray of water,
And that's why.
Just saying.
That's why the big deals don't get closed.
So now we're in therapy.
Let's get out of therapy mode.
Yes.
Washington, yes, Washington. So you want to respond to this too? Not respond to Lesley, but the weight of your father or your parents.
there's no way, I mean, anything they're expecting is probably realistic with the opportunities they've given, the opportunities that have abounded, the network that we have. Speaking of my wife, she's a great partner. Before her, I thought, living up to my father was about money or, success in career, but it was more, he was just happy that I chose Lesley as my partner because we have two beautiful kids, a healthy family, and that comes number one. Number two, I don't blame my wife for some of my failures. I take accountability for it. A little support when I mess up would help instead of throwing more, gas on the fire. But I think me and my wife are getting closer. We recently let go of our nanny, so we've
had to communicate better.
Yeah, well, we're forced to communicate.
Yeah.
And, that's really helped our relationship.
And I think accountability on both ends, as far as kid-wise, because usually the nanny's there to pick up everything that we can't do.
Right.
And now it's just between me and Washington.
There's always a buffer, and then there's date night when you want it because there's somebody there. But now it's kind of like, who's going to take care of the kids when I have girls' night out or things like that.
Wait, when you have girls' night out?
Wait, I mean networking, guys. Networking.
That could go a lot of different ways.
Networking, guys.
I get back to therapy.
80% of our audience is female, so I do got to please them.
Yeah. Overall, how do you think your parents have changed since the shows aired?
I wish they would have changed more, but
I want to hear.
They didn't change much.
Oh, they didn't change much.
I think they're too rich to
See, I kind of disagree. I disagree with that. I think, especially with Judy's story, just having one-on-one conversations with them, they rewatched it and see, because we didn't get to see every scene, and to see how raw Judy was and her emotions behind it, I think that really changed their perspective.
I don't think they've changed, but they've become more accepting of the decisions that I've made in my life. And, they're more open to it and they're happy for me at this point.
Yeah.
But let's talk about who really changed.
Ooh. Who really changed? Washington?
Superstar right here.
Me?
Judy Ho.
How'd I change?
You shined on the camera.
She's always shined.
No.
Yeah, but wait, but Washington. Yeah, but Washington, what do you
changed.
mean Judy's changed? Tell us what you think. How do you think she's changed?
After the her being vulnerable and letting off her chest some of the truth and being open to my parents, I think she's become more, feels more empowered. Also, she's in love, but she seems a lot more confident. I think it brought out, a side of her that, we all get to see, but the world has never gotten to see. And so, I'm really happy for her.
Is that true, Judy?
I would
agree.
I would agree that how Wash just described Judy, but I would say Wash changed more than Judy, in my opinion, because I've never seen him take so many selfies before. Now everywhere he goes, all he does, he's always got his cell phone on 24/7, taking videos and selfies.
I got 100,000.
But he said he always says, I need content. But
I got so much content.
But that's always been his personality. But I like to see Washington having fun with it. He's having a lot of fun. So
I can comment on Washington, but I do want to go back to Judy's change. What I can comment on Washington just from the first episode of the show, and as I'm just following him on social media, and it's the self-awareness has increased quite a bit from my perspective. Yeah, I can see it slowly sort of being more aware of his flaws, his own temperament, his own disposition, and in the way he treats his family and Lesley. So it's very rewarding. And, we'll talk about if there's a second show renewal, but if there's anything that people should look forward to, I think that's sort of that self-awareness that's building up in Washington's personality. But now I want to go back to what Washington. How do you like change in terms of? I mean, we have to go back to Judy actually, because Judy, how do you feel? Do you feel like there has been a transformation?
I feel there has been a transformation, but I don't think it's because of the show. I think it's because it just so happened that they filmed what I was going through at the time, and that was a transformation. But whether the show was taken or not, that would have happened. I was getting out of a marriage. I was turning 40, and I just think for a woman, when you have those two milestones in your life, there's bound to be change. And for me, it was for the better. And it just happened to be shown on national TV. But for sure, I think Washington's changed the most. He, as you said, from the first episode to the last, and even now, I feel like he's more embraced, like being a husband and a dad and being more present. And he's doing such a great job on his journey. And I'm so proud to witness it.
To respond to that, I think, this is not a generalization for all Vietnamese men, but our culture really embraces this sort of chauvinistic side of men kind of being able to be anything they damn want in their family. American society forces us to be much more impractical with that, which means I think that they're, women and men are equal in the family. And so men have to take a reality check on their own awareness. And you could see this evolution in this show with Washington. And I think what you just said, Judy, about it would happen whether or not the cameras were on you or not. But I think for Washington, maybe this has actually helped propel the awareness, rate of awareness growth. Reagan, I don't know much about you other than, what we've seen in the last 2 episodes, but
what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah. What has it changed me? Not much. I was barely on it. I mean, I still am who I am. But it's been good to see my sister and my brother both, blossom and become better people, better parents. And actually, it's been cool. I think the TV show brought all of us closer, my whole family closer together. Even though I'm not on it, I could see that. So
right.
It's been pretty good.
I'm going to start this question with Lesley. From the minute Washington's words impacted your ears when he brought the message to you about doing the show, what did you think in your head? What were your Washington? What were your expectations, or what did you think specifically?
And I think the whole family knows Wash well enough to know that when he comes up with these crazy ideas, we just kind of brush it off. We were just like, okay, whatever. I didn't believe him. It wasn't until I think we had cameras in our house that I was like, oh crap, this is really happening. Because I think Judy and Reagan both would agree with me. Wash has such crazy ideas all the time. Like he says stuff all the time, and so we just all kind of, okay, whatever, bud.
Okay, but then once you kind of had this like epiphany where like, okay, shit just got real moment, right? What did
you? Oh shit moment, yeah. Oh shit, like. So
what did you specifically think that you wanted to kind of like show the world or allow to show the world?
I don't even think I got time to process it. I know during that time, Wash and I were going through something similar, like, in real time, with his arrest and his drinking problems. Like we were going through that. We were going through therapy. So to me, it was more of I don't want to show the world that, I don't want to, why would I go on TV to show the world how crazy he is, or how our marriage is terrible. Like, oh my gosh. So I think during the whole filming process, I was very much aware of, no, you can't show that scene. No, we can't be talking about that. No, I don't want to talk about that. Because I didn't want that to come out, stuff that I didn't even tell my parents. And right. That was my biggest fear, was like, I didn't want to show my mom, or my dad or my family. I didn't even call them. I didn't talk to him. The only person that knew anything was like Wash's family. So to have that on TV, I'm like, oh, and now I have to tell my parents before they find out on TV what happened, or, and there's gonna be so many questions. Is this really how your marriage is? How many years did you guys do this? It's not the happy family that you would see in Christmas cards that I send every year.
Yeah.
And so that was my biggest fear. It wasn't the world necessarily. It was like, okay, now I got to, it's the kids' schools, it's such a small private school. I was worried that the parents are going to see it. And then, our friends are going to see it. Stuff I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew anything. So that was my biggest fear. And I was like, oh shit, now what? And I was trying to kind of carve the story, and I was trying to control it a little bit to where, you don't see this, you don't see that. Okay, see a little bit of something, but in the end, it all came out anyways. In the end, it leaked out. I didn't even tell the producers until I think like the 5th episode or something, that they really knew what was going on. Like we had already started filming, and they didn't know anything that was going on, but we were having problems. They could see it. And it was seeping into, our conversations. It was seeping into the way we were. And so they had finally sat us down and was like, okay, what is going on? What's happening? Like, we're storytellers here. We need to, you got to be honest and upfront.
Filming? You didn't tell me.
Well, they sat down. Yeah, I did.
Lesley, what you just said really answers a lot of people. They wonder, they're like, how much reality is reality on these shows, right? And I think that
it comes out.
Yeah, you just answered it. It's shit is
It's
real.
It's real.
It's impossible to, we're not trained actors, but when you're with your wife, the love of your life, you've never been filmed before, and there's cameras all around you and there's crew around you to fake anything. So, I remember it was like the second week, and producers were like, okay, so Leslie's going to sit here at the breakfast table in the dining room. You're going to come on and be like, hi, Lesley, how you doing today? And I mean, we did that like 20 times, but you can't fake it. And that's when we kind of like had to talk to producers and be like, hey, this is what's going on. I know we want to, be as authentic as possible, and we think you guys need to know this. And so that's when it got more comfortable.
Right.
I think you could see me being more comfortable after episode 4 and 5, and would try to redeem myself, because I finally was able to let go of everything. And that was probably the hardest part for me and Lesley, was to let the world know that, our relationship has a lot of problems and a lot of issues. But like Reagan said, I think as a family, it was therapeutic in a weird way, where we were forced to work together, and we're closer now than we were before. It feels like we're in high school again, actually.
What?
Right? Like
I feel like all the conversations,
fun again is what I'm saying. At least with
closer now. Yeah.
All the conversations that we had was filmed in real time. Stuff that, okay, want to talk to Wash about his drinking. Like, I've been putting that off for years, and to sit there and talk to him and have his reaction, and I don't know how he's going to react to anything, and having, cameras in our face about it. I mean, everything was filmed real time.
I think about a Vietnamese wife in Vietnam growing up in the 70s or 60s and going through what you went through, Lesley. You would have to just grin and bear it for the rest of your life.
Forget the 60s. His mother's friends are like, oh, my husband's the same way, but we just don't say anything. We're just quiet. You just stick there and you just deal with it, like, and that's what, like the 90s, the 80s, and it's still happening. Like, these women are just, their husbands are that way, and you just deal with it because you're the wife and you married him, and that's it. You just shut up and let him be, or what did someone tell me? Oh, you just go to another room and close the door until he's,
done with it.
Sober. No, no.
Yeah. Judy, I want to go back to the question though. What did you expect when Washington told you about the show? Not over. I don't want to know the initial, like, oh my God, like he's coming with some crazy idea. But no, once you're like, this shit is real. What did you think in your head? Like, what did you expect that you wanted to show to the world?
One thing you got to understand in my family is that when there's this, all the hoes like to act.
There's not enough of it.
Producers.
I was fine with sharing what I was going through. When same reaction as Lesley. I was like, oh, is this real? And once they showed up, I'm I'm either, I was like, if I'm signed on, I'm going to show it all. And I was like 0, 100. I'm at 100. So from day one, I was like, whatever you guys are asking me during our interviews, whatever's going on in my real life, I'm open to sharing it. Yeah.
Yep.
These two were lagging behind. Like, you guys.
I was the opposite.
Oh my God.
I was at 150. She was at 50. So it was like me trying to be like, hey, we gotta do this, girl.
No, because I had
She's
more
like-
to lose. I felt
she's
like,
like,
you know, I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't have
She goes,
I
don't
didn't
want
have the
people to-
love story, you know, like, oh, I'm so in love. I didn't have that. I had like the shit, you know, and I was like, well, what do I have to gain from showing this?
And
like,
she blamed me for all this shit.
Well, it's a
Well,
reality show. You gotta show it.
Yeah.
Well,
I know,
you know,
I know that, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, I didn't want to, and
She's
I feel
like,
like it
I don't
seeped
want-
out anyways.
She goes, I don't want people to know that I'm crazy enough to pick your ass as a husband. I'm not like international TV. Like, that shit ain't cool.
well, Lesley,
And I
I,
was like, well, it's too late. We're in week 5. Like, I can't freaking fake it anymore. Like,
I would argue though that hasn't things improved, even if it's, you know, right? It's
Yeah.
the ability
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get Washington to be more aware it's got to be life changing,
Yeah.
right? For everybody, for you.
obviously,
Yeah.
she let me be myself today. I just wanted to be comfortable. And thanks, honey. I love you.
Mhm.
When does she not let you be yourself?
She always tells me how to dress. Like, I'm.
I do not ever tell you how to dress.
I think that's I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Reagan looks nice today, though.
I said he looked like he was running for president.
When I
I
saw
know,
him wearing,
it's the opposite. I
when-
usually
when I
expect
saw him
Reagan
wearing
to
a
push-
Yeah.
suit, I went in my closet and my wife goes, "What are you wearing?" I go, "I got to dress as Reagan today because he's dressed as me."
Usually it's the opposite.
That's it.
I'm just wearing boxers underneath. Actually, I can't see it.
And the next question is,
Roller
Reagan,
skates.
can you stand up so we can see?
Yeah.
With roller skates. Reagan.
That's gonna cost you. Extra.
This is OnlyFans.
Yeah, $4.99 a month.
OnlyFans interview with Reagan, but it shows the bottom.
Priceless.
What new things, what new realizations have each one of you come up with since the show? Whether it's about yourself or about, actually, what is the one thing about yourself and then the one thing about your family that you've realized?
You know what's really cool though? One of my biggest fears was like, you know, when like you Google reality shows or stuff like that,
Yeah.
like people tend to divorce or best friends or brothers and sisters get farther apart, or like the 1% chance that it's therapeutic and they get closer. I'm just glad we all got closer and, you know, didn't like.
Oh, you're the king of statistics. He came down and was like, Judy's divorced. If you hang out with Judy, you have a 75% chance of getting divorced. And then like reality stars, you know,
Really?
there's like an 80% chance of getting divorced.
Hey,
He's
someone's
like,
gotta.
what do you-
Hey, you know.
Why are you
I gotta-
looking that up, Washington?
You know,
why
I
are you
make
looking
shit
up
up
divorce?
just to get what I want.
And what is it that you want?
I just wanted, you know, not to lose my sister as my best friend, and then not to lose my wife as my best friend at the same time, because they started sharing things, and I thought that was like not cool.
We're girls, you know, and when Judy lived with me, we were closest than we've ever been because it's usually about kids and
I'm
stuff.
like,
And then
what about me?
Yeah. What was the question again? Sorry, I got sidetracked.
What are the new things you realized about yourself and about your family? So internally, what did you realize about yourself? And then what is the new thing you realized about your family after the show?
So I've always felt like I live my life and I really don't care what anyone else says. And this just cemented it, you know, like my life is out there and I know a lot of people have opinions. You know, I turned off the comments on my Instagram. You know, a lot of people are positive. Obviously there are haters. I don't care to hear
You know
either
who
one.
you are.
And then, and you know, my parents, they were always, you know, typical Asian family, you know, they only want people to know the good things about us. And I feel like after everything, I think they realized, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what other people say. You know, they've been fine. You know, all our family secrets are out there and they're just fine. So, you know, all those things that they were holding on to or so afraid about sharing, you know, I think all of us realize at the end of the day, you know, we live our own truth and it is what it is.
Yeah, I learned it was good to see my family come together as a unit and, put on an interesting show. I know they went through, especially Washington and Lesley went through a lot to really reveal their real lives. So that was pretty cool to see. Because I knew they were going through a lot. So I was interested to see how much they were going to reveal too. So that was pretty cool. Me learning about myself, I don't know. I was barely on the show. I learned.
Yeah.
I am who I am. I don't know.
I think he learned how popular he is with the ladies.
That's true. I did learn that. But,
Reagan is a cool, confident, that's what it shows up on the episode. Very cool, very confident. You have a very even keeled.
Good.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
What about you, Washington? Any new revelations about yourself and about your family after the show?
I appreciate you recognizing the self-awareness. But definitely, seeing yourself sober as well is a little bit different for me. I used to mask my pain with alcohol or, drugs or, whatever. But seeing myself, going through recovery as well as being recovery outside and watching myself, I think that's what's helped with the self-awareness a lot. So I'm just trying to stay away from the danger zone, whether it's if I'm feeling weak that day, me and my wife have learned, I'll just communicate it. And, sometimes she'll go to the party by herself or she'll just come home early. But sometimes I feel weak and I can't be around. It's not that I don't love my old friends, but it's hard to watch, how the Asian culture is. And when I'm fucked up, I really do come off as a big dick and asshole. And I didn't really like that about myself. So I understood more why people felt the way they did. That might have been my defense mechanism, but the way it affected other people didn't make me feel well. Of course, watching myself with my kids and my wife, if that was the best I could do, that'd be great. But since being a half-ass father or husband or businessman or son or brother, and having the potential to be better, it has affected me as well. Try to make me focus more on my mental and emotional health and trying to be more like my father. And what I saw on the show about my father was that he doesn't wear his emotions on his sleeves like me. And that's probably made him a better father, husband, and successful businessman. Maybe he wears it too hard, but I'm trying to work on that as well. Is by keeping my emotions as stable as possible, so I don't, fall off or fall back into where I was.
I think for me, I have realized I'm more resilient than I had thought that I was. I think I was just trying to stay afloat and keep the family together, and hide my problems for so long that it was just, this task and this task. I was just moving from day to day, task to task. And now, going through the filming and so many hours for filming and having to talk about our problems in such a short span, something that, would have maybe taken 6 months to talk about and deal with, and to go through therapy and everything. We had to go through in 2 months, so that pressure on us really has showed me, how strong our marriage is, and the capabilities of both of us to put our family first, and to get through and solve situations and problems.
I have lived with this Vietnamese proverb for many years of my life. And as I'm going through life, I've heard it through other cultures as well. So it's not just the Vietnamese culture that has this proverb, but it's basically no 3 generations remain rich and no 3 generations remain poor. And there's obvious cycles to this, right? Because if you can imagine, the rich is like the grandfather, he amassed a ton of wealth, and then the son sort of can live in that sort of that gap that he's made money, but the ambition is lost from the father to the son, and then from the son he still has residual money. It goes down to the daughter or the next generation, third, it's gone. It's sort of that muscle to hustle is gone.
Yeah.
And then they burn through all the money, and then that fourth generation lives in poverty and begins to understand like gotta like, and then so the cycle repeats itself. You and we are on the second generation, so we're kind of in the sweet spot of parents having money, but now we have to worry about the children, that our children having it too easy. um I guess my question is, do you all, I would like to hear your thoughts on what the third generation for your family, like where you feel like your mind space is headed with your children.
But with my kids, I feel like right now, obviously our parents spoil our kids a lot. Like they'll
Right.
be like, oh, we're going to Target.
Yeah.
You can take whatever you want. So I feel like when they think of their grandparents, they're like, oh, grandpa, you know, he takes me out and we get to do all these fun things. But I think when they come with me, when I go to Target, I'm not like, oh, guys, pick whatever you want. Grandpa says we can get 5 things, you know. I'm more like, okay, if we have like a good week, you guys have been listening, you've been doing what I've asked of you, you can pick one toy at the end of the week. Just kind of setting like a mini goal for them, something to look forward to be like, oh, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. You know, my kids are still a little bit too young to understand like money and how much things cost and what it takes to get there. But, you know, it's hard to balance that line sometimes because you want the best for your kids.
Yeah.
You want to give them everything,
Yes.
but at the same time, I don't want to spoil them. I don't want them to always expect this from their grandparents. And, you know, actually going through a divorce, you know, my kids are more cognizant of money because I talk about it with them, you know, because they're like, oh, if you're working, who's watching us and why is the nanny here? And I have to go to work to pay for whatever. You know, I'm more free about that because it's just me now that's with them. And obviously I have my dad helping us. But, you know, I'm hoping to one day just support myself with just the kids. And I hope that they recognize how much work goes into it. And even though we have support, that they have to appreciate it even at a young age.
For me, I don't see myself as that second generation. I feel like myself, I'm more like the first, you know, because my parents, like me today, I'm more successful than my parents were coming over. But what I saw in them and what they'd been instilled in me is the hard work of $1. You know, like I had to pay for my college. Nothing was handed to me. I had to pay for, even when I graduated, to pay back my loans. Half of my paycheck went to my college. And then, you know, I lived in this apartment that was like, I think like $800, you know, a month, just scraping, you know, and I would save up for a $300 Tory Burch purse. Like that was my splurge.
Right.
So to me, I feel like I understand the value of $1 and how hard it takes to work for that. And that's what I want to instill in my kids, that it's not easy. It's not given to them, you know, pay for it, let them take out a loan and see that interest building up. Like I had to open that, you know, log in and open that every month and see, okay, this is the interest that it took on my college loans and how long it's going to take me to pay that back, given how much money I'm bringing in, you know, to have to calculate that, to have the pressure of that, you know, it made me who I am today and made me more self-conscious of money. And that's why I'm, you know, frugal in a sense, but I know where to spend my money. I know what's worth it, what's not worth it. I just don't throw it around just because I may have it, you know. I mean, to plan for the future. You know, tomorrow's not promised. You know, you may be doing well today, but tomorrow COVID could happen and something, you know, happens and you don't make as much money anymore. You have to have money, residual money to live off of to get you by. And that's what I wanted to instill in my kids. So I'm hoping that they're the richer ones, you know, that they're that second generation, you know, the first generation, and they can do better than me. Because that was our goal of our parents, right? To come over here so that their kids be better than them.
I know Taiwanese I'm married to a Taiwanese woman, and a lot of them are, you know, very well off. And I know a lot of families that have to lie to their children, say we're broke, we don't make money, and it does a number on them, and it's amazing to watch. And then when they get a little older, they get a Toyota Camry or they get a Volkswagen, you know, a Jetta, but their parents can afford, you know, much higher than that, and that's all they get, and they're lied to their whole life until a certain point. the parents reveal it when they're ready to. And I find that to be pretty mind-blowing to be able to go through that. I wish I can, have the heart to do that to my children, because I think that would actually be, I don't know, good for them. But it's hard, like you said, it's hard to, you want to spoil them and you want them to know that
Right.
they're having a good life too.
Roosevelt's getting a Honda Ronda. I mean, that's what I drove,
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What's a Ronda?
That's what I named my Honda.
Oh, I thought that was a
No,
type of Honda.
No, Honda Ronda. That's what I named my car. That's what I drove.
Washington, with all of the self-awareness building up now, and you're recognizing sort of the way you're handling your children, what kind of thoughts go through your mind with the financial side of things, about giving them money and stuff like that?
Being the Duk Dong, or the oldest son, I've heard, the 3-generation thing that you talk about. And, I think it's always going to be hard to replicate someone's career that was at a different time, like we talk about.
Yeah.
But, I think the biggest blessing that my parents gave us was they were successful enough to allow us to at least explore different industries or different investments or careers, and to see what we like to do. But to continue, for me and my self-awareness, it doesn't help me to compare myself to my dad. It makes me more anxious,
Mm-hmm.
like, man, like, why can't I do what he did? And I lived like that all my life. And
Yeah.
I've learned to like really celebrate what he's done, embrace it, and then focus on, trying to find what makes me, happy. It might not be banking, like my dad, but, I'm just trying to focus more on my family at this point.
In terms of a succession plan for your father's sort of his work, do you all sort of think about that? And is there something in place, or is there going to be
we
another-
definitely
Yeah.
we definitely talk about it. We plan for it, and it's of course, it's for someone like my dad who's been that successful. He always has a plan. So it's even now, like, my sister's an attorney, and she does whatever legal work is needed for us, and I help out where I can, and so does Washington. So it is a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
To manage, the real estate and other businesses we have. But as far as, the generational thing that you mentioned, I think what the Taiwanese do, I think that's a genius thing to do, actually. Rather than, a lot of the Vietnamese way, it's like, let's show off everything we have, But I don't know.
And then when you look at the bank account, you're like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a
Reagan
lot of
Reagan runs operations. He knows about that one. He's like, Washington, what the fuck kind of branding expenses is? Just kidding.
Yeah.
Anyway, but if you want to know more, I guess you'll have to keep watching if there is a season 2. I don't know if there is.
And if there's not, we're filming with Kenneth Nguyen.
But there's
Washington. What'd you say, Reagan?
But yeah, there's a plan in place for sure.
I wanted to talk about this immediately from the get-go of the show all the way to the end. I had no idea Judy was actually the oldest. I actually thought Judy was the youngest. And
Thank you.
Yeah, because you look the youngest. I actually thought that you were the youngest
That's a
one.
good one, Kenneth. I'm gonna start using that one. That's a good one, man.
Nice recovery.
I promise that's how I thought. So, but there's a bad side to that too, right? Because that made me question: is your family based on gender, based on pecking order of your birth order, or is it a meritocracy based family? Right. So I wanted to get in. Say it again.
Gender.
Does there need to be an explanation?
Okay, so let me get into that then. You were growing up and it's a gender-based favoritism based on gender, right?
Yes.
Did you ever fight that? Did you ever sit and tell your parents, oh, that's not cool?
You know my mom, she would try to like talk me out of it. She'd be like, oh, it's because, you're so good and you're so smart that you don't need me and dad to like help you. And you can handle things on your own. And Washington, he needs more help. So that's why we give him all the attention. And Reagan's the youngest. So of course, we all have to take care of them and give in to them. And I was like, okay. So that's how it was explained to me when I was a kid.
So it didn't sound like a real big deal, because the way you're explaining it's very, you don't sound like you're hurt or devastated by that sort of decision.
I'm not hurt or devastated about it because I know my parents love me in their own way. They don't show it to me the same way they show it to him, but I know deep down they love me and they show me in their own ways. But at the same time, I know that's just the way their culture, and that's just how it is. And what I truly do feel as the oldest sister, I try to do whatever I can to help my brothers out of pure love, not because, my parents forced me or because any other reason. So whatever I can do to help them, I'm up for it.
Look, Kenneth, like, it was funny. We came home from Oklahoma this past weekend. We went up there to celebrate my sister-in-law's baptism for her kids. But on the way home, I told my parents, like, Judy got this new car, just like the one I was driving, but it was a white one. And, your new white SUV is really nice. Well, my parents, they like had a grocery store named after Judy. Dad used
No,
to
it was a washateria. No, the ones, a coin laundry. That's what I got.
No, but
Washington
then every year for Christmas, my dad spelled her name on like the front of the house, like Judy, like in cursive. And
what's your point, Washington? What's your point in bringing that up, Washington? Answer the question.
Judy's right. They love her in different ways, but they forgive their sons more for screwing up.
I agree with that.
Judy's never gotten in trouble though. So
yeah, I do. You didn't watch the show?
Not when you were younger.
Judy, yeah, growing up, Judy was pretty square. I mean, she studied a lot and stayed in, and for the most part, Washington and I we were wild childs.
We were at juvenile hall when we were 12 and 13.
But to answer your question, for sure, Washington he's the oldest son. So in Vietnamese culture, of course, they're going to get most of the attention, but along with that attention, I think comes with a lot of pressure too. So I know it can be difficult for Washington. So yeah, we tease them and say mom and dad love him more, but they also, in a way, give him a lot more pressure too. So that has an effect. I'm the baby, number one. So in the Vietnamese culture, the baby, they really take care of the baby. But my dad also puts a lot of pressure on me as well. And my dad and I butt heads more so than Washington and Judy with my dad, I believe.
Oh, wow. Really?
Because Judy, like she said, a lot of what my dad asked for, Judy kind of does it and doesn't question things too much. Washington, can do no wrong in the eyes of my parents. But for me, I will challenge my dad if I disagree, or in business, or even sometimes just when we're talking politics and just basic things. I think Judy and Washington would rather not rock the boat, but if I disagree with something, I'll say it. And I know my dad doesn't like it sometimes, but I just have to say what I feel I need to say. But yeah, I don't know. We all get love, but in different ways.
Washington, Judy, I would love to know and I've been meaning to ask this too, why do you think Reagan turned out that way from your perspective?
I would love to know this question. I've been thinking this for 5 years now.
What gives Reagan the balls to stand up to the man, right? Why does Reagan have that capacity, that capability to?
He was born that way. Even as a kid, he would always get yelled at because my parents would try to teach him something, and then he would talk back before they were done talking, and they're like, "Why are you jumping into my mouth?" Like, like it's it's just who Reagan is. And that's just because he loves them, wants to make, it's not that. He just wants to challenge my dad to think in different ways because my dad is so conservative sometimes, but he thinks he's open-minded. So Reagan's just like, well, what if you did it this way? And then that annoys my dad because he thinks like, what, are you saying I'm stupid kind of thing?
But Washington, but why didn't you do that? Or why didn't Judy do that?
Because when I watched Reagan and him do it, it's just like Reagan still doesn't get his way. So I'm like, why don't I just tell dad what he wants to hear? And then
He'll say what my dad wants to hear, and then he'll just do whatever he wants anyway. So
yeah, I'm like, he's too old. Like yesterday, he came over. I was doing the grass, and he's like, "Oh, you planted this one? It should be 6 inches to the left." I'm like, "Okay, I'll move it 6 inches to the left." And then like he left the house, and he came back, and he said, and I didn't even move it right because I knew it'd take forever. He goes, "See, I told you." I was like, "Yep," because I told him to stand in a different spot in the lawn. So it's like he's old. Let him be happy, man. It's all good. Tell him what you want to hear, even if it's left.
Yeah, I don't. I just say what I want to say.
Why is Reagan able to do that? Why is Reagan able to just speak his mind?
Maybe because he saw how me and Washington were. It's like, I don't want to be that way.
Yeah. He's always like, Wash, I know you don't really want that. And I'm like, yeah, I do. You're like, you just want that because dad said it would look great right there, didn't you? And I go, yeah. You're like, it looks stupid. Like, move that shit. That's stupid. I'm like, I will. And he'll keep coming back to my house. He's like, why didn't you move the thing? And I'm like, I will. And he's like, that's because you're scared to hurt dad's feelings. He's not the one that lives there and has to look at that shit every day. You do. And it was this big waterfall thing he made me do. But I'm so glad I ripped it down and now I get to design my own shit there.
Yeah. He put this huge, koi pond. I like koi ponds, but the way this one was pretty ugly.
It was bad.
It was ugly. But of course,
Reagan, you should have seen his face when he came over. And I had these two guys over, like removing that thing. Like Lesley calls, he's like, "Hey, what?"
Yeah, it's your house. You do whatever the hell you want with it.
Yeah, Reagan's like, it's your house, dude, not his.
Yeah, and then my dad, he's a military guy. He's an alpha dog, right? He's been right most of his life. Like he's made a lot of money just doing what he thought was right. So it's very hard. It's very hard to challenge him. And so I guess it's like two alpha dogs arguing with each other. But I'm not cocky enough to think I'm always right. If I know I'm wrong, I'll admit it, and I can eat it. But I'm a little more open-minded, and I try to get him to see things from another side. But the older he gets, the less I try to, because he's kind of stuck in his ways, and there's no point getting his heart rate up, his heart pressure going. So I try not to. I try to do it less now.
Freaking black pine that he wanted to move 6 inches.
Yeah.
But as a result, though, do you feel that because you're very challenging to him that you get less love, less money, less favors than Judy or Washington?
No.
I wouldn't say less love, no. I don't know. He knows if he comes to me, he's going to get some reality. I'll tell you that. So I don't know. It depends on the situation. Sometimes he wants my opinion on certain things, and sometimes he doesn't. So I wouldn't call it less love, though. It's just a little bit different.
In terms of family and friends in your world, all of you, all four of you, how has that changed for each one of you?
I get a lot of girls DMing me saying they want to be my friend now. But we have this small, close-knit group of friends that we hang out with, and I've, and what you didn't see on the show is I have like a little girl tribe, like 6 women that are all his friends' wives. Or I didn't make friends with them organically or anything, but they're a good support system.
What is y'all's title on Instagram?
Wives of Troublemakers.
Wives of Troublemakers.
So that's our chat room. That's the name of it. So Wives of Troublemakers.
You care to name all the wives, please?
I plead the fifth. They're gonna deny it.
But she'll name the husbands right now.
right? But other than that, no, nothing else has changed. I see a change in Wash though. You know, there's people that pop up randomly, more so wanting to be in the limelight.
I got Shark Tank in my garage with fans. It's hilarious.
Yeah, Washington, you got random people coming from the internet, living in your house.
Pitching me.
Yeah, that's the weird part is when they show up. They show up and Wash is like, oh, he's gonna stay here. But I'm thinking like a weekend, you know, whatever. I'm like, okay, and then once I have to kick them out, because it's been, I'm like, what time's your flight back? I'm like, oh, I booked a one-way.
Right.
It's a one-way, you know, to Houston.
Like,
so
like, don't you have a job? Like, what?
Yeah, don't you have a family? Don't you have a job? Don't you have friends? So
God, this is like another podcast right here.
Yeah. There's more of those that I deal with, but you can talk more on that.
What?
Washington likes to have.
Well, you know, when I started this, Kenneth, you know, and as me and you spoke, I think 2-3 months ago when Reagan did, you know, just knowing that you were Nguyen or you were Vietnamese, like I told Brittany who set this up, like if there was any Vietnamese I could help or smaller entrepreneurs. And these guys just need a little exposure, and if they're good, they're good. I mean, at least I gave them a little bit. Right. But you know, I try to help 1 or 2 people if I can, you know. But you know.
But why is it your responsibility to help these people?
He's just a helpful kind of guy.
Well, you know, they're fans and they're here, and I want to try their food, and fuck it, they're gonna go smoke brisket for me, and I like it and the food, and I'm gonna share this, you know.
Washington likes having an entourage around that, you know, that I'm going to say it that he likes having an entourage that kisses ass. That's what he likes.
But he's always liked that.
Helping people.
We have the man
Hey,
here.
look who it is.
Chào bác khỏe không bác?
Yeah.
Dạ. Con hân hạnh được gặp bác. Cảm ơn bác đã cho thế giới coi cái gia đình của bác. Con rất là hãnh diện được thấy bác và gia đình.
Nhưng mà without you, how the world know about? So thank you first, okay?
Yeah, con hy vọng được,
you know, transparent the whole world know about, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Con hy vọng được một ngày nào được ngồi chung với bác gái. Nếu mà hai bác có rảnh thì con với hai bác nói tiếng Việt, rồi con cũng chia sẻ và muốn biết thêm về đời sống của hai bác.
Come to Houston.
Someday.
Yeah. Cảm ơn bác.
I'll get back.
Yeah.
Thanks, he's coming to check on the landscapers.
Oh, I never told my parents that I did the first podcast with you. My mom, like one day, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, came up to me and mentioned it. She said it was good, but I never told her about it. So I don't know. Somehow she found it. But I'm sure they'd be happy to do an interview with you, my mom and my dad.
I appreciate that. I again, it goes back to that first question that I asked about the articulation, right? I speak Vietnamese okay, but I even feel like I don't get to know my mom and dad or older people to the level like Reagan, when you and I talk, or, you know, we can get down, we can really break things down on a granular level because of our sort of vocabulary that we share together. But all of that experience and that love that we don't get to experience with our parents, it's gone, and it just terrifies me when I think about it.
Yeah, I can see that. Does your mom speak English, or do your parents speak English, or is this
they speak English probably like your father right now. You know, not a lot of vocabulary. We
it's just back to like what you said, the Vietnamese way of, you know, of not using words as much and being more intuitive and understanding of each other, I think.
Have any of you experienced during the whole time you guys were taping a fuck it moment? Like, fuck this is too difficult, I want to stop?
Yeah.
Every day.
Really?
They did.
It's like, every other day I feel like I was like, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore.
Holy shit.
No, like, it's like, why put myself through this? You know, what are we doing this for? Like, it's not the money, you know. What is the point of this? You know, it's like, and I felt like our marriage was the beginning, when I was trying to hide everything and not be open about what we were going through, you know, I'd be like, Wash, you can't say that. Don't say that. You know, no, don't say that. No, I can't film that. And so I would just be more frustrated and frustrated. And I was like, you know, and I even had a conversation with the producers and Wash that was like, you know, husbands and wives, like they meet on screens, you know, because they have so much chemistry, and that's why they get married, like Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, you know, and they have all this chemistry, and we're married and we're supposed to have this chemistry, and it's not seen on screen. Like you don't see that. And then I was questioning like our marriage. I was like, you know, should we even be together if we don't have this chemistry, you know, on screen, where it should be so innate and so natural, and it should be like, oh yeah, they belong together. You know, and that's what it was just so hard for us to even be in a room, and so hard for us to have a conversation, mostly because I was trying to fight back tears, and I was trying to fight back emotions, and I was trying to hide what we were actually going through. You know, not saying I was, you know, trying to portray the happiest marriage or anything. You know, obviously Wash, you know, being the way he is, you could see, you know, some of that, but I was trying to hide the real, you know, kind of problem behind it also, like the alcoholism part, or because I hadn't even dealt with it. I hadn't even processed it myself, you know, being taped through it. So I had lots of fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore. And, you know, and I had to be talked down, talked off the ledge multiple times.
Wow. What would have happened, Washington, if Lesley decided to drop out? What would happen to the show at that point?
There's no show without me.
We might have gotten a huge ratings hike, you know, because I'd have 2 girlfriends, and you know.
But they're like, Wash, you can't tell the story about Lesley, you know.
Reagan, would you say?
Probably true.
Hey,
it would have been a different show.
Hey, Scott,
it would have been a different show.
Scott and Courtney might get back together. I read it.
You would have seen the old Washington come back.
Hey,
that's true.
I don't want to see that.
When they make Reagan an executive producer, they'll see the old Washington come back. He knows how to produce that one.
What about you, Judy?
No, I didn't have that.
I never had that either, so
Just me.
Just
Lesley every day.
I think because Lesley hadn't shared a lot of that with her own family, so it was harder for her. With us, we were going through it with our family, so I'm like, it's already out there anyway.
But what I would tell Lesley is, I'm like, babe, my sister, she announces a divorce. I announce my alcoholism. Whatever you're going to announce is going to look really small to your family no matter what.
That's true.
Yeah.
She was like, yeah, you're right.
I'm still getting the backlash from my family from this whole show. You know, my mom still calls me and says, your aunt called me and she said, you're so throwing me up. Like, so, you know, everyone feels sorry for you. You're so pretty. And how could you marry a guy like that? And in that family, and your mother-in-law treats you that way.
Oh,
and I'm like, Mom, it's just a TV show. You know, like I still deal with that.
Yeah.
Her mom's like, she's like, Washington, can you, you know, when the
everyone wants to know, you know, my number one question is Wash really that way? Is he really like that in real life?
Her family saw me this past weekend and they were like,
you know, because when we're in Oklahoma, we see them once a year, you know, and I even said that on the show, like, you know, I think once a year is good enough. But that weekend, I make sure he's in a suit and tie, and he's well behaved, and he doesn't say things, you know. And
no, her aunt saw me, and they're like, "Oh, you lost weight. You really are an actor." And I go, "Yeah, it's all acting."
I mean, I really had to tell them sometimes.
They're
No,
like,
it's not real. It's not
like,
real.
"Oh,
you know?
okay, I knew it was acting."
My mom tells people that her friends call her. It's like, "Oh my God, is your daughter?" Yeah, she's like, "No, they're acting." You know, that's what she has to tell people to make herself like feel better.
We're acting.
I want to identify. I want to identify something real quick that I want the world to know. What Washington is just doing to Lesley right now is sniff kissing, right?
Yeah, my mom does that a lot.
And it's very it's very specific to Vietnamese people. I feel I don't know much about maybe a whole lot of other cultures do, but Vietnamese people do that a lot.
They do, especially with kids.
Yeah, but then you think about it.
Don't do it to me, dude. It's gross.
But then you think about it. You think about the implications of that. I don't know. I'm just like thinking, well, if you're just sniff kissing your kids, you're not really the intimacy level of an American family where they put their lips on, you know, the kid's cheek, or that's like direct, right? Mm-hmm. And we are just so indirect with our love, right? It's just like just tapping their cheek and we just smell their essence.
Yeah.
You think it's because like all the fish sauce that they eat? Like I know, like my
Probably.
grandma,
It's
she
like,
kissed me like
you
on
need
the
a
lips
shower?
and be like, oh, it's not sanitary. Like I smell fish sauce on you.
It's to save money.
That's the.
She doesn't,
that's
she
a
doesn't
good
need one
reason.
today. She doesn't need a shower today. It's not that bad.
That's
Now
a
that-
really good reason, and I never thought of that. It's all the fish sauce. That's why.
Yeah. I want your lips on me. Well, that's what he eats, like all that mom and fish sauce stuff, you know? So I'm like, please don't put your lips on me. And his lips are huge.
Ah,
Now,
Give me
now
all the
that
sniff kisses.
now that you've all been given sort of this social platform, this place of speaking out publicly, do you guys have any plans personally, each one of you, to sort of like go with a charity or go for some cause or do anything specific with each of your platforms?
yeah, we're supposed to be planning a big charity event in Washington and I that we'll reveal it later this year. But for not only giving back, but of course trying to explore new business opportunities, which has been pretty good so far. We've had a lot of people reach out to us and wanting to do some type of collaboration. So that's been good, getting our name out there, I think. Other than that, I don't know. I just use the social media to try to meet women, I guess.
Which we'll see maybe.
Just
maybe
another
later.
charity.
Yeah.
Charity. Yeah,
That's a good
Different
one.
charity.
That's a good one.
Very giving.
I feel like I've been approached with a lot of women who have personal stories, who have gone through the same thing that I've gone through. So those are more personal interactions I have in the DMs through my social media. I've been approached a lot with a lot of women-owned businesses, a lot of locally owned businesses, especially Vietnamese entrepreneurs that want to do a collaboration or want me to promote it in some way. And right now I'm just meeting with a lot of people and trying to decide what I'm going to focus on. And it seems like a lot of moms with like multiple kids like me, or single moms like me, or divorced moms, they're the ones that relate to me the most. And those are the type of product pitches I've been getting lately. And then, but a lot of Houston owned businesses that I like to promote on my social media, especially women owned businesses.
Yeah, for me, I think, the mental, health and recovery that I'm going through, just looking at different companies, me and my brother had some great meetings this past weekend, things that have helped me in my recovery and, my health, and, when you're mentally healthy and emotionally healthy and physically healthy, and what's helped me get there and how it's affected my life and gotten it better, I want to share with other people. So me and my brother are working on a few projects, how we're going to share that story. But I just want to help others that are going through the same thing I am and inspire them that it's possible. This is how I did it. But these are the things I went through as well. And, what has helped me through that journey.
I've actually been involved with several charities. It's something that I want to use my platform for personally, and I've been evolving that. I spoke at the Mindful Business Women's event that raised money for human trafficking, which is huge here in Houston. I'm also doing another commercial that sheds light on human trafficking. I'm going to tour the Home of Hope, where they actually bring these women in and, instead of giving them clothes and a job and pinning them back out, really deal with their emotional in therapy and how to get back into society to where, it's a different mindset once you're rescued. And that process in itself is difficult. And this organization helps them go back into society and be, women and not be scared anymore. And I'm actually involved in helping out with Little Abandoned Angels, which is an organization that helps raise money for the orphanages in Vietnam. We're actually going to the gala here in 2 weeks on May 8th. I've used my platform a lot for charities specifically. I feel like the ones that involve children really tug at my heart.
Yes.
And those are the ones that I want to shed light to, just like Kids Meals Houston. They had reached out to me. They have no advertising whatsoever. So I, support the Houston Food Bank, but those organizations are so big and they have so many avenues of fundraising, whereas these little ones, the mom and pop ones that do so much good, they don't get the advertising, they don't get the money. And I feel like that's where I can help out. And that's, I feel like that's kind of like the bigger bang for my buck. That's where my time can be mostly used and monetized.
It's beautiful to hear all four of your perspectives on the platforms and how you will decide in the future. And the evolution of your family is so interesting because we get to see, from day one all the way up until the next few years, how this is all going to play out. And regardless of how it plays out, it's already done things for our community. It's brought the community together in many different ways, through conversation, through actual, these podcasts, and it's the proliferation of the Vietnamese brand throughout the world, not just in the United States. So I thank you all for participating in sharing your lives to the world through the TV show. Is there anything in closing you all would like to add?
We just want to say, thank you so much for all the love and support from all the fans out there and the audience for giving us a chance. And pretty much we're grateful and, we're blessed, and we want to thank everybody that was, supporting us all the way from the beginning. And we're going to do our best.
I think our show came out at an important time too, with all of this Asian hate and Asian hate crimes out there now. And I hope people recognize that America is no longer the America that, is just white. There's so many pods of different people. And I hope our show just gives a little bit of light, into understanding our culture. I guess just be more knowledgeable. I like watching reality shows. I'm a big reality show buff. I watch the Indian one just to understand the culture a little bit better. And I think that helps people open their minds and open their hearts, so that we don't raise our kids in a world where there's so much hatred going on.
The diversity aspect, I think, is it's cool to have, my family on TV. It's kind of, it trips me out, but, I know. Yeah, I still haven't watched it. I can't because it trips me out. But but I know when we were growing up, when we were kids, the only Asian representation we saw was like Bruce Lee or like the dorky kid in the romantic movies, dorky Asian kid. So I think it's good for especially the younger kids to know that, we are also Americans, and this is another side of being Asian American. We're just normal people, just like everybody else, going through normal issues, family issues.
Like Washington said, we are so grateful to our fans and everyone who's opened up their homes to learning about us and our stories. And we're so proud to represent and add to Asian representation in media worldwide. So to see that, our family struggles and our family celebrates the same things that everyone else does. And that, I also appreciate that we showed everyone what Houston, Texas is about. I feel like there are a lot of preconceptions about our city, and we love our city. We were born and raised here. And I hope that everyone appreciates our family. And, it does take courage to put, to be out there, to share everything. And that we hope that everyone is open, if there is a season 2, to learning more about us.
Thank you all. Houston, I got to meet Washington and Reagan many years ago as we were putting a movie together, and got to really get to know Michael and Trisha Din and Brittany Tran, all very close friends of mine today, all people from Houston, and Patty Maylab, another good friend of mine that I talk to a lot. And Houston people are just warm, and everything we know about the South is, it shows up in the Vietnamese-American culture from Houston. Thank you all for the work that you do, and I look forward to the next year and the next episode, if there is one. I enjoy it, and I thank you all for the work that you've done.
Make sure you
Thank you.
call us or DM us when you come in town. We'll take you out.
I sure will. I think Reagan and I get together. I'll cook for everybody because I love to
Oh,
cook.
okay.
All right, we'll do it again.
Thank you all again.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
All right.
Kenneth.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.